Hello and welcome back. My name is Myre and it's time again for the roadmap roundup, this time for July the 14th, 2021. And this time we are joined by the roadmaster himself, Mr. Jake Acapella, who is in charge of actually writing up this roadmap roundup. So if I happen to screw up today, then hopefully he'll be able to at least correct me. And if I miss him in chat, you guys can check it in the chat whenever that shows up. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Okay, so, it says that this week we have a wealth of new deliverables as the downstream team schedules have been set for Q3. As a reminder, since these teams are largely reactive to upstream, their schedules on the roadmap only show 1 quarter into the future, as opposed to the upstream's 4 quarters. Additionally, some increased visibility on the tasks needed for server meshing and persistence have been added to the network and persistent tech teams. You can check out all the new deliverables below, but definitely take a peek at these teams on the progress tracker to see what else they're working on in Q3. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's roadmap roundup. So, notable changes for July the 14th, 2021. So, progress tracker. So these deliverables have been added to the progress tracker. So, laser trip mine. So implementing laser trip mines into the game, which are explosives that use light beams as triggers. When someone or something comes in contact with the beam, the mine goes boom. So these are your quintessential like GoldenEye proximity mines. I wonder if they'll visibly look that way, you know, like I guess, you know, GoldenEye, Half-Life, all these games have very similar kinds of, you know, like gameplay in mind with them. It'll be interesting to see this in, at the very least, you know, not Squadron 42, but I'm sure we'll see it there for sure, being a single player game. But Theaters of War will likely have this as a thing, I'm sure, as well. It's always interesting when you have things like these, because with a game with like Star Citizen with like, you know, permadeath or whatever like that, booby traps and that kind of thing, you know, like how much of an impact will they have on a player? I guess we'll have to wait and see, but it's always cool to see more and different kinds of items and gadgets being added to the whole mix of things like that. So next up we have Frontier Clothing. So, generating concepts for Frontier style clothing for players and NPCs. So again, Frontier clothing to go with the colonialism outpost stuff that they want to do. Things for like outposts and colonies for NPCs and players around Pyro and you know, the Nick system. So I would imagine just by the name of it and stuff like that, Frontier kind of brings to mind like, you know, the Wild West and cowboys and, you know, the Firefly sci-fi show. So I wouldn't be too surprised at all if that's the general aesthetic we'll be getting with this. Then female player head. So completing a modeling and texture polish for the female player's head. After this pass on the asset, it will be sent to the tech animation for a rigging update. So we already have a female player head. I haven't necessarily used it all that much. I do know that in general, you know, from like a shape perspective, pretty much every female character looks pretty much identical. Either everybody has like a very similar idea for, you know, beauty standards or whatever, or like, you know, it's just a matter of the head being a bit not as plastic as the male head. So I guess we'll see a difference with that. Likely they've done something in Squadron 42 and we're getting this as a kind of like you know, a bonus to Star Citizen because of it. So, DGS mesh mode. Oh, so that was for Squadron specifically. Oh, I see. Thank you very much, Jake. So that's thank you for that point. Awesome. So like, so DGS mode. So DGS mesh node implements multiple dedicated game servers, or DGS, and clients connected to the same instance of the hybrid service, and allows DGS to exchange entities and authorities over them. So I'm imagining this is part of the server meshing iCache kind of like bundle that they're working on. So this is just like maybe a little bit more of a specific item in that, a dedicated game server. Then Shard Manager. So this will add functionality to the hybrid for what will become the Shard Manager component service. The Shard Manager functionality is responsible for creating a shard in the entity graph database, ensuring it is seeded with an initial population of entities, communicating with matchmaking so that players can join a shard, and talking to provisioning services so that a hybrid and dedicated game server can be assigned to a shard. So again, another piece of the server meshing puzzle, now I believe being called shards instead of just plain servers. This is looking pretty interesting. Well, because this has been added to the progress tracker, let's go ahead and actually go and check in deliverables and hit shard and see if we can find it. So again, here, shard manager is right here, and if we go ahead and hit the 1 year button, we can see exactly where it is. So it's actually slated to be starting at the beginning of this year. Actually, in about a week's time is when development is supposed to start for it, and for at least now this is projected to continue up until the first week or so of September for this section of I believe that server meshing piece. Okay, so let's go ahead and check the DGS mesh node as well, because we are here anyway. So DGS mesh node, again, to be starting at right about the beginning of August, so a little bit after the other thing, but to be finishing, or at least scheduled to finish, a week before the end of September. So server meshing, it looks like a lot of this stuff is slated to be done before October, of course, which is CitizenCon. So what better time to show off all of this stuff but CitizenCon. Okay, so inventory Onsto. So Onsto refers to fetching an item from an inventory and placing it into a shard. For example, a ship loaded with cargo being unstowed removes the ship and its associated cargo from the inventory and places them into the game. This work implements moving an item's persistent data from an inventory into a shard managed by the entity graph, and adding the item to the replication layer. So, something that they need in order to load and unload entities, so a ship, maybe a hab, maybe a persistent hangar, in and out of a persistent, like a, dedicated game server and that kind of thing. So again, just another piece of the server meshing hybrid that they are using in order to, show us that it's not just one thing, but several parts of a bigger puzzle. Yo, Phantom Killer, thank you for the 16. So let's go ahead and just see where that is. So inventory Onsto, So again, slated to be starting very soon, and again, roughly being done around the end of August. So, and again, Onsto refers to the fetching an item from an inventory and placing it into a shard. So again, verbatim what we just read here. So, let's see, item port mod API. This API allows tools like the Vehicle Modification app, or VMA, to modify ship loadouts inside inventories. Okay, so we already have the VMA, which is part of the Mobiglass. I'm sure this is just something else that they need in order to make it work better with all the stuff that they want to be delivering with, I guess, persistent hangars and stuff in the future. We can check actually to see where item port is and where that's going to be. And again, mid-July until end of August for item port. Then Shard Data Query API. So this API allows game code access to common queries against entity graph data. Freeform Variable API, so a Blackboard service for game code systems to write generic persistent variables. Okay. And then AI, so AI navigation links, ladders, ledge grab. So implementing special adapters to allow the navigation system to be informed of potential nav mesh connections offered by ladders or ledge grab markup. The navigation links already allowed the creation of adapters that contain game code specific functionality to function as sort of translators between system specific domain into the navigation system. So just allowing AI to be able to grab ladders and go up and down them and stuff as part of this whole nav mesh system that they're working on to make NPCs not just things that exist in and around one specific area, but to be able to transition and do things like grab ledges and go up ladders. AI and trolley push. So this will be the first pass on implementing the ability for NPCs to use trolleys and trolley-like entities, like gurneys and stuff that you see in hospitals. They will be able to move in the environment, pushing and pulling those entities to place them from and to specific locations. This requires the creation of a special path follower that can take into consideration external forces that need to be balanced to achieve the desired speed. Because of course it's not just moving the character around, but moving the gurney, and the gurney itself has a special kind of, it's almost like its own like flight mode really. It has like its own special inertia and curves and stuff and moving around, so it's a pretty big piece of the puzzle here. AI ground vehicles. So this is the first pass on supporting NPCs controlling and driving ground vehicles. So this requires the implementation of new path follower that can take care of the vehicle's physical abilities to transform the NPC's movement request into actual movement. So I suppose it just means that in the future we'll be able to see NPCs driving around once they've done this nav mesh piece. So let's go ahead and check. So ground, just type around, what was it? Ground vehicles. So yeah, AI ground vehicles. So this work is scheduled for the latter part of September to the beginning of October. So again, something we might see if it's done in time for CitizenCon. AI unmanned missile turrets. So adding AI controlled missile turrets to improve defense of green zones. So this is something that I thought, you know, I personally said, why don't we have these? But at the same time, you can guess something like this could be easily griefed, no? Like if you bait an AI turret to shoot a torpedo at you and you fly behind somebody's 890 that's landing, that could cause some issues, you know? It's a lot of collateral damage. At the same time, who knows how it'll work? Those green zones do need better defense, definitely. AI medicals, so implementing a variety of medical AI behaviors. A patient will arrive at the hospital and check themselves in at a terminal, then wait to be seen, called to a room for a diagnosis. The patient can then see doctors and nurses tend to sick and injured people. Other patients will wait to be called. Doctors and nurses can be seen washing their hands, checking medical stock and dispensing medicine. Some patients will be asleep in medical beds. So I wonder if the patient sitting around and waiting their turn to be seen by a doctor will actually be something on a cycle that you can do a time lapse on. That'd be kind of interesting. AI leisure, and only interesting because of course we have a system for what will be in the future virtual NPCs. So NPCs that are more than just set dressing, but characters that will be interacting with your character, with your own player, in much the same way that the Nemesis system works in Shadow of Mordor, where you see an NPC and either it kills you and you kill it, or you blow up their ship and there is a history. That character might survive. It might be in an escape pod. You might see it again later. It might have massive following. It might become a strong fleet captain and stuff. Those VNPCs will still have to do things like go refuel, rearm, repair, and just have downtime in general. You know, they might want to go to a hospital and, you know, like register a clone. All that stuff, Tony Z has told us might be part of this whole systemic thing. And so it might be kind of funny to like see your nemesis at a hospital waiting, you know, their turn because, you know, you put them down one day. It's kind of funny. All right, so where were we? So AI dance, no, AI leisure even. So the leisure behavior is a segment of our new civilian behavior system. Let's go ahead and check the AI medical part first. So AI medical. So again, so at the beginning of August until like mid-September for AI medical. And again, you know, in time for October, which is a pretty critical point because that's when CitizenCon is, and nobody really knows what they're going to be showcasing at CitizenCon. But generally speaking, I feel like anything that you see like finishing work before October will likely be in it. You know, things like the hospital medical concept kits, the medical stuff in general, things like that. So AI Leisure. So the leisure behavior is a segment of our new civilian behavior system, controlling how the AI behaves when they have free time during their schedule. AI will create a lifelike environment by relaxing and having fun using the things that are available to them, such as exercise equipment, jogging routes, TV monitors, seats, benches, and the mobi-glass. So we kind of already have some NPCs that do leisure things. Like in New Babbage, there are AI that jog around the commons area, that go ahead and they do yoga, but maybe perhaps they want to make it a more systemic thing. Maybe give the AI some sort of proxy to like actually look for things to do, get tired of doing one thing and keep seeking out leisure activities, instead of just being the same NPC doing, you know, downward facing dog for 5 hours. Let's go ahead and see where that is. So leisure. So leisure again slated for before October. AI dancing already done. So a lot of these things as well, like dancing and leisure and stuff like that, I believe are tied with the monthly report, where they said that they had a 4-day long motion capture shoot, I believe, earlier in the month. So that's likely where they're getting all this new, at the very least, animation data stuff for these new NPC things. So yeah, AI dancing, and we just saw that before, and that's already been done apparently. So AI dancing. So dancing is a new segment of our new civilian AI leisure behavior. So after work, some civilians will have the urge to spend time at a nightclub and dance the night away. This will bring new life and movement to our bars. So it does seem like AIs will go back and forth from places as opposed to just being assigned to one place. And again, systemic AI. Fire hazards. So the fire hazard system will track fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects. For the initial release of Fire, this feature will be a setup on a few select vehicles. Okay, so track fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects, and they've shown off this on the 600i with parts of the not the lobby, but the main living area being like set on fire and catching fire, and different parts of it catch and create smoke and different emissions at different rates depending on the materials and things like that. So they're saying that only a few with tier 0 will have this feature in. If you go to Origin, you can actually see the beginnings of fire because of the fire pit that we have in the Voyager bar. That's like a little sneakily peekily there of fire in general and how it'll look, but not necessarily how it'll catch and propagate. And the fire hazard is slated for the end of August. So destructible workflow. So building out a workflow to assist artists and designers to work with destructible objects, just so to make more things destructible. Destructible. Yeah, so that's actually slated to be done at the first week of August. So Myre Live Link. So Myre Live Link establishes a link between Myre and the Lumberyard Star Engine Sandbox editor. It is primarily meant to give animators the best possible what you see is what you get style preview quality by seamlessly integrating the editor rendered images in the Myre viewport. So Myre is just another kind of a 3D editor. But yeah, so Jake says this is more systemic behavior in order to create a life cycle. So yes, awesome. So that's again about the AI stuff. So before, or currently, if you're watching it today, you know, like I say today, watching it in July, AI, as it is in Star Citizen, is essentially just like they have one job and they do that job. Your job is to do a yoga. I am doing a yoga. So they want the AI to be able to do more than that and to be more believable, more realistic, and for you to, you know, like do a whole people watching session on an AI character and see what their routine is. So rescue transport missions. Okay, so taking advantage of AI follow behaviors to create missions where players transport customers from one location to another, along with prototype missions where players must rescue imperiled clients from dangerous situations and escort them to safety. So our first ever escort missions, the best kind of MMO missions, but of course they want to make use of the new nav mesh. Just hopefully the NPCs you rescue will be a little bit more responsive than bartenders are. Let's go ahead and have a look in where rescue is. So rescue transport missions are slated again to be done by the end of September, which means that this is likely going to be a highlight for CitizenCon. I would wager maybe like a rescue mission on a new location or something. So infiltrate / defend mission. So underground facilities are the first place to benefit from the addition of spawn closets, which allow us the expansion of the suite of missions that take place there. Missions range from all-out assaults to situations where you may be able to complete objectives without the need to engage in combat at all, and include both lawful and unlawful missions. So this is a direct continuation on the bunker missions. In fact, the Clovis Darneely finding a satellite and going to a bunker and putting and then like hacking a chip. If you remember, or if you want to check the VOD for when Chris Roberts and Todd Pappy first show off that bunker mission, Chris actually says, maybe perhaps we could have some NPCs coming in afterwards because it's getting a bit dull. So this is that, and infiltrate defend mission. Did I just close the tab because I'm smart? I think I might have done. There we go. So infiltrates. And again, that is slated to be done by the end of September. So comm array mission improvements. So several mission improvements and totally new missions set across and around the comm arrays with specific focus on PvP content. So currently comm arrays comm arrays are used for two things. They are satellites that have a field, right? And if you're in that field and you commit a crime, then the comm array goes, I spotted you and you're reported and now you have a crime stat. And currently what criminals can do is they can go to a comm array and turn it off, and then you can commit a crime in that area. So they want to make more comm array specific PvP content. So perhaps maybe more kinds of comm array upkeep. We've seen, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be replacing what comm arrays are like in Star Citizen, but we've seen the Asiedo comm array in the Squadron 42 briefing room demo. So I believe that, you know, like if they have comm arrays like that in the Odin system, which is just kind of like sparsely populated and just random, then the Stanton system should also have comm arrays that are large with interiors and stuff like that, where missions like this could take place. So probably. Let's go ahead and hit comm array missions. So comm array mission improvements. So again, this one here is slated for maybe a week or two into August. So again, when I mean it's slated for, it doesn't mean that by that time it'll be out, but by the time the next quarter patch comes out, so October's patch, then you might expect it to come through, as long as there are no other dependables to look forward to. Okay. And then, so physical QT movement. So physical quantum travel movement to this deliverable has been previously removed from the roadmap. It has returned to the progress tracker as it has been scheduled to be worked on in quarter 3 by the physics team. So physical QT. So slated for maybe like a midway into September. So perform the quantum travel movement within physics, along with efficient empty space checks along the quantum travel path to determine when to drop out of quantum travel if a potential intersection might occur. So currently, when you quantum travel, you are moving from A to B in real time, but the moment you engage into quantum travel, your character and your ship no longer become physical entities. They go through things that are in the way, barring a mantis that has a like a quantum snare field, in which case you will then drop out in front of the mantis. But they want to actually make the ships that are in quantum travel physical entities that can crash into things, not that they will crash into things, but that can get obstructed by things along the way because they are a physical entity. So we'll see exactly what that'll do in terms of gameplay, but you know, like making things more real is always cool. So we're getting quantum travel splats. I'm not necessarily sure if it's going to make it so that you can do that one scene from Star Wars where you know, like you can just warp through like a galactic cruiser or whatever they're called, or imperial cruiser. But like, but yeah, they'll be making it physical, so stuff can happen. What kind of stuff? I don't know. So Misc Hull B. So the Hull B was originally scheduled to be worked on simultaneously with the Hull A. However, additional resources needed to be allocated to the Hull A. Therefore, we're temporarily removing the Hull B from the progress tracker until it's been rescheduled. So the Hull B is just a slightly larger Hull A. It doesn't necessarily. So the Hull C is the first big multi-crew one. The Hull B, I believe, is like a 1 to 2 seater. Let's go ahead and type Hull A. So the Hull A is slated for like mid-November. The Hull B is removed, but is the Hull C there? The Hull C is again for mid-November. So at the very least, we'll be getting the starter ship variant, and we'll be getting the larger Carrack-sized one with lots of space. Okay. So in release view, so these deliverables have been added to release view in Alpha 3.17. So persistent hangars. So again, this ties into a lot of the shard stuff that we read I was gonna say upstairs, but we read earlier in this segment. So persistent hangars, players will have the ability to have their own persistent hangars. This will bring changes to the cargo gameplay loop by allowing players to buy cargo and send it to their hangars, then maximize their cargo storage space by allowing them to pack the goods themselves. Gone will be the days of getting booted from your hangars because you were there for too long. And I wonder if that's going to also tie in things like, you know, I think they're called berthing fees, where like, you know, you have to pay to keep your ship in a hangar in a location as part of the whole, you know, need for a money sink in Star Citizen. And the fact that there is, you know, it's going to be taking up a physical place and have a physical location as long as you're on the server, which is, you know, why the game needs to have that whole shard load and unload thing for when you're not actually playing. But in the monthly report, it goes one further. So here, it gives us more of an idea of what's going on, saying that when you buy cargo, it'll be put in your hangar, and then you as the player will then get the opportunity to then move the cargo physically with the whole cargo refactor onto your ship. They also mentioned in the monthly report that NPCs will also be able to do this exact same thing, essentially refactoring the bartender AI to be able to then assume the role of a dock worker, and so you can employ NPCs to load your ship for you while you are doing other things. They talked about, and this ties in again to the old reputation system talk that they mentioned, where the higher reputation you have, maybe perhaps the cheaper it would be to employ these dock workers to do stuff for you, but also you could perhaps have more dock workers and things like that as well. So all in all, pretty cool stuff. So and then lastly, Outpost homestead, independent and outlaw. So a small home for AI to live and shelter. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules. They provide the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. So again, the whole colonial outpost stuff, but I'm not sure if this is different from the colonialism outpost thing or if it's part of the same thing. These little NPC villages, think like little Tatooines or sorry, little Mos Eisleys, right, and stuff like that. It is not, says Jake, who wrote the thing. So okay, now I am interested. Let's go ahead and look at the release view for 317. And so locations, so outpost, homestead, independent, and outlaw. So this does resemble like a lot, you know, like a very Star Trek-y kind of like interior. I do love the whole idea of these frontier spaces. You know, it takes a page out of Firefly, and I always wish that Firefly had more than one season. And, you know, maybe perhaps some intrepid citizens might be able to make a machinima that'll bring us back to that, you know, like living in the frontier and stuff like that. How cool. So yeah, a small home for AI to live and shelter. I do hope that at one point we'll actually get more of these outposts and stuff in places like Hurston. You know, you have Lorville and you have New Babbage, but what about the rest of the planet? You know, you have outposts, but they're so few and far apart. It'd be nice if like there were roads connected to them and there was more of like a livable, like a more believable kind of thing to see. It'd be nice, again, you know, like if there were missions to go back and forth between these things doing logistics, but with spaceships, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be like all that crazy. I'd like to be able to have missions that would require like to drive to places, you know, back and forth from these outposts. But why would you drive instead of fly a ship? Maybe because, I don't know. maybe the item might be sensitive to pressure or something, or velocity, or like altitude. I don't know. But yeah, anyway. So that's that for the roadmap roundup for July the 14th. So this is going up onto YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, well, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you would like to be informed when the next roadmap roundup comes up and when we do a review of them again in the next 2 weeks, please do feel free to like and subscribe and all that stuff. Hit the notification bell, and we'll see you in the next one. And until then, as always, be good.